Call the meeting to order of July 8th, 2013. Jen, would you take roll, please?
Commissioner Delzer?
Here.
Commissioner Erickson?
Here.
Commissioner Waldner?
Here.
Commissioner Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Lindsay?
Here. Okay. Attached, you have the minutes of the July 1st meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those?
I move the approval of the July 1st minutes as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Ahead of you, you have the agenda for tonight's meeting. Do we have any additions, corrections?
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, appearances, acknowledgements, and correspondence. We have Rosie Jameson. The Chamber of Commerce is requesting a street closure for July 27th. Rosie, would you like to address the council? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lindsay and Commissioners. We appreciate you having the opportunity to allow the Chamber and me as the spokesman for the Chamber, the Community Promotions Committee, to take your time for a brief moment to discuss the opportunities that we have to be able to promote our town a little bit more on Saturday, July 27th. You may have before you the actual request that I had submitted for the street closure, which is from the 100 block of Egan Avenue, North Egan, down to the 400 block South Egan Avenue. This is to allow for the enhanced offerings that we're interested in being able to provide to expand the traditional retail idea of Crazy Days from the 2 days into the single day of events, activities, entertainment, and opportunities for more people at different ages from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. The information that I provided also shows that we would be interested to support the Tour of the City 10K, 5K, Egan Avenue mile, and the Kids Fun Run to be in the morning, and that would allow for the afternoon for those 200 and 300 blocks to be opened back up again. So that period, that placement would be just until noon. But the reasoning for all of this is to be able to enhance public opportunity and promotion of the community, but also to ensure public safety during that time because we have people out on the streets. We'd like to have the stores being able to have their wares out in front. Also to have the Laban family train be able to pick up and drop off people. We have demonstrations and musicians that will be performing out in that center area as well as some of the artisans that are going to be able to provide their opportunity for people to see and learn more. We ask that you consider this favorably. We have some additional things that were being offered this year in addition to the demonstrations I mentioned. We have inflatables, and those do require space on the street, and they can't be put up and taken down. They do need to be there for a period of time. That's also for the street closure request. And I could entertain any other questions that you might have. I did send a note directly to Mayor Lindsay, and I know that that may not have been shared. I do have a listing of kind of the schedule of events if you'd like to take a look at that, if that would be able to help in any way.
Okay. Any questions or discussion?
Rosie, the only question I'd have is, do you have any of the people up and down Main Street that ever object?
I have not heard of any. Chair of this Chamber Community Promotions Committee is Dick Bobbush, and he made the direct contact with the Egan Avenue folks. I made the contact with Washington on when Washington Avenue retailers as to when they would be open if it was different than their regular store hours. And those that are open during that period of time were willing to enhance their hours to meet this and did not share any dismay with him,
Okay.
to my knowledge.
Okay, I understand. I'd never heard any complaints, and it's been going on for even longer than I think than I've been around, which is a long time. But
And the idea to try to have people just look at this as what we have that always was good, and then just to give it a robust approach to what has been a tradition of Crazy Days, now a discovery, a full event day, to have people come and discover the unexpected here in Madison.
Any other questions? Discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the request for the street closure of the chamber for the areas and the times indicated in the request.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, and we hope for good weather.
Well, we do too, and we appreciate your time and positive consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we still want the standard department form with this too, or?
Yeah, we already have that.
Okay.
Yeah, we
It's gone.
kind of jumped the gun when we sent the email out that Rosie was good to go. and
I kind of
apologize
thought that was
to
in the
you
letter,
about
but
that.
that's, I'm glad
We
that.
appreciated that. We knew we had to take care of that as much as we could beforehand, and we do have the liability coverage for everything as well, to ensure that people are taken care of.
Very
Thank
good,
you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Old business, seeing none. New business. Resolution 2013-23, establish a special maintenance fee. Okay, I would like to speak to this to begin with, and then we'll open it up for anyone else. This is a street issue. We've talked about this before. You can drive down the streets, you can see the issue. It doesn't have anything to do with property valuations, it has to do with streets. So it costs the same amount to put street in front of a vacant lot as it does in front of a $30,000 house, as it does in front of a $100,000 house. We have the streets. What we need is we need to repair them. The other thing is the costs of blacktop mirror the price of fuel. And as I said before in the previous meeting, if you go back to the 1999 or even prior to that, we were at $1 and something a gallon, or even less than $1 a gallon. Now we're running somewhere between $3.50 or $3.33, I think is what I looked at earlier here today, and upwards of $4. Blacktopping has done the same thing, but the budget hasn't. So what's happened is we aren't able to do as much each year, but every year in the summertime and in the wintertime, nature acts on it to disintegrate it. And so what's happening is our streets are disintegrating, and they're going to get to a point where all of a sudden we don't just have one or two potholes in a block that we have to fix. We have a whole block that is disintegrated back to gravel. The budget is not able to do what it could in the 1990s because the streets are falling apart faster and the costs are higher than what the budget's gone up. We've had people say, well, transfer money from some other fund. Well, in the past, we've done that. And what have we gotten criticism? Why did you transfer it from this fund? Why did you transfer it from that fund? The water department, you get a monthly billing for your water use. There's a little profit built into there. That money could be used for replacing water lines. But we don't have the blacktop money to replace the blacktop if we tear it up. The sewer lines. The sewer, you pay a monthly sewer bill. And at the end of the month in that, there's a little bit of profit left over in that sewer account. But again, we can't replace the sewer line because we don't have income from the street. We don't have toll roads. We don't have a monthly bill to send out that says, this is your cost per month and that for your use of the highway. So we've got a fund that doesn't generate anything. But in order to fix what's underneath it, the 100-year-old lines that are disintegrating, coming apart, ending up in people's basements, and the city doesn't pay for those repairs either. So already this year, in the short time that I've been a mayor, I've had people in there saying, what are you going to do to repair it so we don't have flooded basements again? You have to pay your deductible if you have flooded basements, if you've got insurance on it. So these are things, and that people don't like it when you transfer from one fund to another. And yet, nobody wants to pick up the tab, but everybody wants a street fixed. We have 464,046 surface footage of streets in Madison. Overlay projects, that's going in and hoping that the blacktop is in a decent condition and we can put an overlay on the top of it, runs $27,000 per block. But that doesn't take care of the water line and the sewer line that's 100-year-old underneath. We just keep waiting for, okay, which one's gonna break next? Where's it gonna break? Whose basement is it gonna end up in? If it doesn't end up in yours, not such a big deal. If it ends up in yours, you're very unhappy. To do an overlay, if we're going to pull the street off and have the opportunity to replace the water line and the sewer line, we're looking at $97,000 to do one block. And that takes care of the asphalt and the underlay, but it doesn't pay for the cost of the water line and the sewer line. So these are kind of the realities of what we've got out there, okay? And so it's something that if we put it off and put it off, pretty soon we won't have to worry about blacktop streets. They'll disintegrate to the point where we'll have gravel streets again. And I don't know of anyone, no one has talked to me saying, let's go back to gravel. I've had a handful of people who, maybe let's try it this way, maybe let's try it that way, or don't want to pay for it at all. But I've had more stop me and saying, glad to see something done because these streets are getting in terrible shape. And if we don't do something soon, we aren't going to have to worry about streets. Now, if, and I'm not saying we're going to pass this tonight, it depends on what the commission's feelings are, but if we were to pass it tonight, it's still 2 more years before this money would be able to help repair streets. That's 2 more summers, 2 more winters. So with that, I'm going to see if there's anyone else on the council that would like to speak. And I really am happy to see the people that are here in the audience, because that shows that you have an interest. And we have people at home that I know will want to listen to this, on the computer. So if you would like to speak, and I would really like to have you speak because you took the time to come out, I would really ask that you come up to the microphone and you identify who you are, and that's for the benefit of the public at home. And please express your concern. With that,
You summed it up.
yes, Eve, would you come up and state who you are so people at home know? Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Eve Fisher. I totally agree that the roads need to be repaired. I have no problem with this particular levy, however, I'm thinking in terms of long-term. And also the fact that while this levy will raise a certain amount of money, it's limited, it's a one-year shot. And also it's restricting the cost. The funds are only coming out of the pockets of property owners. Yet as we know that renters, businesses, people that everybody uses the roads. The person whose house, whose property is going to be levied is not the only person using that stretch of street. And there are undoubtedly some people who frankly, I know a couple of people who almost never use a car at all, that walk around town or bicycle. But the truth is that there's a lot of people that are using those roads that are not property owners. And I would like to suggest and urge that in the long run, because it's not going to be a problem that will go away, streets you don't repair them once and voila, that's it, they're fine forever, obviously. That we might consider something along the lines of the possibilities, a wheel tax, another possibility. We've got a penny tax here, a penny tax there, well, we might consider a penny gasoline tax. Some sort of way in which those that actually use the streets, those that are actually out there driving, everybody bears some of the burden, which I think would be fair and equitable. I know there's always some people who don't want to pay anything. Personally, I kind of ignore them, but because taxes are what make a civilized society, the words of former Chief Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. I would like to make those suggestions for long-term planning for future road repairs, because we need something that will be addressing this issue for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Thank you.
And thank you, Eve. The one thing I do want to stress that I didn't say is this isn't all the dollars. We have a budget, And we have some money that come from the second penny sales tax that goes in. This is supplemental to it to help make up for where the costs have gone. So it's not that these are the only dollars. These are what we need in addition to what's being budgeted and what's being used from other departments to get to where we can try to catch up. Mhm. Hey, George?
George Lee. I guess the first question I have is, what opinion did the Attorney General give you?
We didn't, I'm going to let David answer that.
Sure. The Attorney General is not going to issue a written informal opinion. I would have to seek a formal opinion, which takes both some time to prepare and receive.
Because when I talked to them, they said they would not issue an opinion. But, okay.
And if I may just add to where you're at, right now in that Fort Pierre is using this particular funding source, but they're not using it for street repairs.
Yeah.
They're using it for other issues, and so it has been brought up, to, is it a vote of the people or is it in litigation? One of the two.
Well, it's in
So-
litigation because Fort Pierce said it's not, it was administrative and not for referendum.
Yeah.
So now there's a lawsuit to determine whether that will, whether it is in fact subject to referendum, and it may be instructive for future cities considering this is a very new feat.
That's kind of, just this and then I'll move on, but a referendum is what makes government work. It's the checks and balance. It gives us as taxpayers the right to disagree with you folks. But anyway, the second penny sales tax, I see you have $108,000 out of that. Motor vehicle license, I see you get $157,000, but it's not designated anywhere to road repair, street repair. It's just there. And that's what it's for. It should be designated for street repair. And the second penny sales tax raises $1,088,865. It takes in $1,283,000. So there's $200,000 that's not accounted for that's somewhere else.
Well, I've not checked your figures, so I don't have an
Well,
answer
yeah,
for
it's
you.
in the budget here.
No,
But
I'm just
anyway,
saying, yes.
And the tax evaluation in the city of Madison has doubled in the last 10 years. We're at $260 million. I don't remember the exact number. But one thing and maybe I'm misunderstanding here, but I gotta go back to the Madison paper here, June 24th. And this is on Fred's department. The city has a $5.3 million designated reserve fund, of which $744,000 is earmarked for the street department. Of that amount, $500,000 is for machinery upgrades. $500,000 to upgrade the machinery in the city of Madison, $6,000. I mean, I'm around town a lot. We got new garbage trucks, we got new sewer trucks, we got new pickups. I'm not sure what equipment we're upgrading for $500,000. Half of that could be into street repair. I mean, you're looking for places for money, and I'm trying to find them.
And the first budget that I'll be involved with is going to be starting here in the next month. So I don't have the answers for you on that question.
But what I'm saying is, when you look at this budget,
Mhm.
and I'm just an outsider, I'm not a bookkeeper, there's money there.
But you have been on the commission, so
Yes,
you are
I have.
experienced.
Yeah,
You are
but you're also
experienced.
looking at one number, and you're saying $500,000. Well, that's a lot, but you're not showing the number of how many dollars in equipment we have. You skipped over that number. So these are the numbers when you leave out, that's frustrating, because when you start looking at those as a percentage, it's a replacement cost. You can't take $10 million worth of equipment, and I'm just throwing a number out, because I don't have the number off the top of my head, but that's the numbers we need to look at. $500,000 in replacement costs on $10 million isn't that much. On $2 million it is, and that's the other number. There's pieces to this. There's lots of pieces of this. There's hundreds of pieces to this puzzle. And to pick one number out and go, well, that's a lot, you can cut there. Well, okay, so we got a hole in the puzzle now. And we keep doing that, and all of a sudden, if you don't look at the whole picture, that's the end of this.
The whole picture is,
Yeah.
I'm not looking at that. The part of it is this $500,000 you guys should be looking at. What is he replacing? Not, there's $10 million here, what is he replacing? Is
But
he
the-
buying 2 more new pickups? Is he buying another truck? That's where you should look at, not,
But the other question is how long did it take to get there?
well, you know.
That 500,000 isn't per year.
But what's in the budget, you could use some of that now, is what I'm saying.
And then what do we do down the road when we need to replace a piece of equipment and we haven't been building up for it? Same thing again. We're taking from Peter to pay Paul right now. And that's what was done in the past. And that's why we're in a situation where we have blacktop streets that were put off. We have sewer lines and water lines that should have been on an annual repair basis, you know, somewhere in the process, hasn't been done. So what we've done, we've waited till they break. Well, unfortunately, in one neighborhood up here, they broke 3 times within a block.
And I think, I don't think this needs to be an argument that, yeah, that we're right and you're wrong. Yes, we have to look at those every year, and we do look at those every year. But it's not just a wholesale, well, there's, you know, $500,000, go do with what you want. There's a schedule. I mean, these trucks are run so long, and we rotate them out, and, you know, and these trucks aren't cheap. That's the other thing. You know, if we look back at even what a pickup for general use, what it cost 15 years ago and what it costs today, the prices are astronomical. Fred probably can help me with this. You know, a garbage truck is $80,000.
More like a couple $100,000.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I mean,
that's- I was gonna
these
say,
pieces of
that's
equipment,
a
if we replace
280,000.
2 pieces of major equipment, the jet pump, that thing was past its, or at its expected life. And when we take a $200,000 piece of equipment and replace it, it eats up that chunk really quick. So it's not like we're buying 50 $10,000 pickups, or, I mean, one piece of equipment eats it up. So to say we can hold it off, yes, we can hold it off a year, we can hold it off 2 years, but what we try to do is when we purchase a new piece of equipment, we look at how the value of the piece of equipment we have and what that value is on the open market today. And there's a point where it deteriorates faster than the value we're saving by waiting 1 more year. So we look at all these things. It isn't just well, that's what we want, so we go get it. We look at both sides of the coin. When's the appropriate time to upgrade to a new piece of equipment? What's the estimated life expectancy of that vehicle? We look at it and go, do we need to do that this year? I know we look at a truck and say, okay, we need to trade those every 12 years or 8 years. But does this truck really fall into that? Has it been used to its potential? And if it hasn't, we push it off another year or 2. So all these things do get looked at, and I think that's important to stress that what you're recommending we do, we're not arguing that. That is correct. We need to look at every purchase we make and make sure that we're doing it in a timely manner. So I just don't want it to get to the point where it seems like you're saying do it and we're saying no. We're saying, yeah, we do it, and we do agree with you on those points.
Okay, being as you brought it up, the new garbage truck, wherever we're going with to the landfill, can it go with the full load on it?
It can. And it does.
And it's not overweight or over limit?
Now we're pushing close to the limit on it.
And the new sewer truck you got, you kept the old one, you could've got, what, 130,000 for it? And
Yeah.
what would be the use of an old one?
It's actually, we kept that to do storm sewer cleaning for the street department. That's why we kept that. Because trade-in value on that would have only, wouldn't have brought us 130,000. You were actually well under $100,000 on the trade-in.
I guess the only other thing was, Dave asked me to, on the seal coat project, and I've talked to you about this. And he'd like to know the answer to why the oil was bad, or why it wasn't replaced, or why it wasn't, we talked about up there.
Yeah. I'd have to defer that to Fred, refer it to Fred.
The seal coat job
Right.
up there did not take.
Yeah, and we could talk about the ins and outs, but I don't necessarily agree that it did not take. There's a lot of moving parts to a seal coat project. You got the oil and the rock and such like that. Whether the rock leaves or not, is scraped away or peels out, the oil's still there, and that's part of the maintenance function of the oil, is to rejuvenate and to preserve that asphalt from oxidizing. Now, we try to use local aggregates with our local suppliers as best we can. Those are non-ideal because they're not crushed, but we save a lot of money trying to use local, lower cost aggregates. Sometimes we have to deal with some rocks in our yard, and But we always try to improve. As that becomes more of a public concern, well, we get better aggregate, guess what? Our cost goes up, and then we have to try to keep those rocks on the road, but we try to keep all those things in mind, as we do that. So, the oil's there, whether some of the rocks are coming up or not, which provides that preservation, the pavement preservation.
I think there's a misconception on it, that there is a contractor out there that we need to go and put the screws to. The contractor's us. So there isn't a go sue somebody, it was us who put it on. But I've heard that, and maybe it's not coming from you, but I've heard people say that. Why don't you go after that person? Well, that person is us, so all that would happen is we'd redo that road.
That's what I meant.
Yeah,
What
and-
I was thinking, if the oil was bad, the company that sold you the oil should replace it.
I think there was, and I think Chad's trying to be delicate. There's some things that happened. There's new equipment being used by the county now. There was a lot of moving pieces there. I think a lot of things have been corrected since the last time. I mean, there was a lot of things that happened there that we've addressed, and as we move forward, we feel very confident let's fix those issues, so.
Excuse me, but if that was done for
Dave,
private
Dave,
business.
would you
private-
please come up for the benefit of the audience at home? And then identify yourself, and then they can.
David Pitts is my name. I live at 900 Northeast 11th Street. And the seal coat that went by our place last year, I'd say is down to 50%. I mean, I see that every day I walk across to get the mail. The taxpayer in Madison really got gypped on this, I feel. Now, that's gonna have to be seal coated again or chip sealed again much quicker than it would if it was a good job. Wasn't there some specs that oil had to reach so the aggregate would go into it? What happened? I'd like to know what happened. Who do we ask questions on what happened? I don't feel that if somebody done a job like that for me, they wouldn't get paid unless they come back and corrected it. Yet the taxpayer has had to pay for it, and it only lasts half the time. And yet, there's where our streets are going down. Every time there's a place where a crack was sealed, it did not stick at all. So a car comes along and you got a bump there. I mean, I think the taxpayer really got beat on last year's seal coat, chip seal.
We can talk about it now or anytime, Mr. Pitts, but I laid out some of the background related to that just a few moments ago, and, the oil's still there. We did actually make the change, and we're paying twice the amount for rock this year approximately. That's crushed rock that will adhere to the roads better, but that oil, which is one of the main components of a chip seal to preserve and maintain that pavement, is still there if the rock is pulled up or not. And yeah, it's not convenient or appreciated many times, but we're just trying to do our best we can with those local suppliers and keep the cost down on the rock. But we hear the concerns, and we're changing to a different rock, and it does reflect, it costs just us a little bit more to do that,
But I've heard other people say that 2/3 of the rock is scraped up within a year and a half.
Yeah, some years we have better luck in different years with the aggregates. We have used the local suppliers, like we said. We didn't have as good a success last year. Again, the oil's still there, but that rock is getting cleaned up, and also Fred's crews sweep the roads, and that's more sweeping that costs there. So we felt it was appropriate to make a change with the aggregate type to get an aggregate that we feel will bind better.
Isn't there specifications that oil has to,
Correct. We use
and
the
they
same-
have to be met?
Right, and they do meet it. We hire the county, Lake County, in a partnership in an effort to try to save from contractors, and they bring in the oil, and they apply it. And to the best of our knowledge, it does meet all the specs that they've bid it for. Like I said, it's a partnership. So, yeah,
Is there a chance that oil was too cool when it went on and the rocks did not go down into it?
there could be a chance, yes.
What was the application temperature?
I don't know what the application temperature
It wasn't 140 degrees?
I don't know what the application temperature was.
But shouldn't somebody be there to watch that, to see that the taxpayer get $1 for $1 spent?
Absolutely.
That's what I got to say. I mean, I think this chip seal really was a bad deal last year. How much does that cost a block?
I believe in the budget, I don't have it broken down right now per block, we have about $108,000 to do about a seventh of the town, you know, each year. So, again, I don't have that in front of me right now, but I do believe we're getting a good product. The oil is getting down, sometimes the rock, I've said that, and I don't wanna keep
Would
repeating
you
myself.
come up there and look at my part of town? You know?
I look at that quite frequently, yeah, and we're trying to improve, you know, we're trying to improve.
It seems to me it's getting worse every year.
I don't think it's getting worse every year, but, you know, some years we have better luck with the aggregate and the gradation that the contractors are able to provide, and some years we don't.
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you both, thanks both of you, and thanks for coming in tonight. Is there anyone else from the audience that would, okay, I see two people headed.
Dean Quaker, when will we find out if this is referable or not?
The way I'm looking at it tonight, and that is if you want to refer it, we're going to take it to a vote of the people, because we feel that there's, just walking around, they see what needs to be done. It's common math to see that, you know, the amount of money coming in isn't meeting what the costs are. And the question is do the people want the streets repaired or not want it repaired? So if it gets referred this time and that, we will take it to a vote, and I will do my best to find the answers to the questions people have. And it's basically common sense. You know, the costs of doing things and the budget, the costs have gone up 2.5 to 3 times, so we have to cut down what we get accomplished. And as they said, you know, the streets may seem like they're getting worse. Well, we're doing as much as we can with what we can, but because the costs go up and the budget doesn't go up to match it, we're accomplishing less each year.
See, what I'm getting at is he was saying there's litigation on that in
And Fort Pierre.
right now.
Yep.
But see, if we don't go for a referendum now, we might get left out of the situation. You follow what I'm getting at?
I think the mayor just said that if this is passed, the commission has pretty much made a decision that we're not going to, there's an option. Fort Pierre, their council took the position that this was an administrative function by the council and was not referable. Not every action of the, remember, we live in a republic and not a democracy, not everything we do is referable. You know, if we adjourn, we don't take that to a referendum. We do certain things that we just do. But the commission has decided, unlike Fort Pierre, after the last conversation, I think the commission said, hey, if the people want to vote on it, we'll let them vote on it. And I'm all in favor of that. So, I mean, that should answer your question.
Okay, thank you very much. And another question I've got is, how come we got rid of the spot patcher, where they blew the dust out of the holes in that machine? Why did we get rid of that?
I think Fred
I
can
can answer
answer
that.
that.
Dean, that was actually because of the fact we ran out of, we didn't have a supplier for the oil. The guys were running down to Sioux Falls to get that. Either that or you gotta go all the way over to Minnesota to pick that oil up to actually get that to work.
You see, that machine really did a job.
Yeah, that's what I understand. That was
I've
before
got
my
holes
time.
that were in my street in front that you passed 3 years ago, and they looked like a brand new street. This summer, they cold patched them twice, and the holes are still there. Last Tuesday, they reamed them out with a brush, and they're reamed out to this day, and then they come along with the sweeper, swept all the rocks and stuff back in the hole. I mean, it's a waste of money and time.
Yeah, I think the important thing is, your point is valid. Yeah, that machine was fantastic, but to get it in quantities that we could use before it goes bad.
Right.
So unless we wanted to buy a tanker of it, which we couldn't use, and that would have been a poor use of resources. The only way to get it was to go to Sioux Falls, and they'd sell it to us at small amounts. Well, they changed their policy, so that was no longer available. So that essentially killed that process. Now, our next option is a new piece of equipment that uses a different product that works very similar, the end result is very similar, and you can buy larger quantities that don't go bad.
What type of oil did Dad use? Was it regular oil that was cut with diesel fuel and stuff like all oil is?
Dean, I don't have an answer to that, I really don't know.
See,
I
all
think it was
the
more of an
rates of oil are
emulsifier.
cut with fuel
Emulsified
oil.
oil.
That's
Yeah.
how you get your different cuts.
So we have a solution, we just have to decide whether we want to spend the money to purchase an expensive piece of equipment, because again, like we talked, they're not $15,000.
How many gallons of oil did you use a year on that?
I don't have that answer, that was before my time, Dean, I can find out and get back to you on it though.
Because it looks to me like we could have bought a tank and got a tanker in. and
Well, the
put that
problem
money
was, we
ahead.
could have got that, but what we'd have is a tank full of hard,
Of
emulsion.
cooled off,
Once
set up
once it goes
product.
bad and sets up, it's like,
It's like concrete.
yeah.
You got so many minutes and you gotta
But
use
you'd
it.
have to run it for 4 years on a tanker. That's the problem. We just don't use enough to justify that quantity. So it was kind of a no-brainer at the time. If we can't buy it in small quantities, it's not something that's useful. Just, that's the one thing I do know, because I did work in that business for a while. You can't let that stuff sit. It's not something you can heat for 3 weeks at a time. It eventually, it has a shelf life. So if we were to buy a tanker of it, it would have been a bad thing. It would be like buying a truckload of concrete. You can only add water so long before the concrete decides it's setting up. And if it sets up in your truck, you just buy a new truck or buy a new tank on your truck. So that, it was a decision that had to be made at the time. Now, again, there are new pieces of equipment out there that use different product, that the product can be stored if we buy it in volume quantities, that maybe, say, it's 2 years worth of product. The new stuff can be stored. We just need to, in the budget process, we'll evaluate that and see if
What are the
that's a piece of
commercial people
equipment.
around here that have the machines? Have they got their own tanks, or do they have to run the Sioux Falls too every time they need a truckload?
I couldn't tell you that. I don't know many people that run that commercially. That's typically highway departments, things of that nature, who use large quantities of it. There are some small companies, but even the small ones work for counties and do large amounts at a time. You typically don't have the $200,000 piece of equipment to run for 2 months a year. It's not a feasible thing, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
My name's John Hess. I actually had the same initial question that he asked, because I wasn't sure how you're gonna handle that. You know, I am glad that you're gonna handle it the way you are, because I think it's much better for those of us who may not disagree with you, because it's not fair. You know, even in the last case, it wasn't so fair. If it had gone to a vote and then you rescinded it, because, you know, if it really goes to a vote, you could really get the whole community gets a clear idea of the issue, you know.
Well, and the other thing is that part of the reason that we rescinded it is we listened to the people that spoke. And when they said, if this had a cap on it, then it'd be, much more favorable.
Yeah,
And
no,
so, that's what we're looking at now. It has a cap on it.
Yeah, no, but, you know, when I was thinking later about how that cap actually affected the taxpayer, it seems to me as though it's really pushing it further, the burden down further to the people at the bottom. Because if you own a small, invaluable lot, you're just gonna pay $50 or $70 or what it is. But now the people at the top, who may have a whole block, like Sunshine or Prostralos, who have 800 or 1,000 feet or something, those big people are only gonna pay $100, so it's going to extend over a period of time the amount that's gonna have to be collected from a whole, which is gonna mean those people at the bottom are actually gonna end up paying more.
But isn't that exactly what you told us you didn't want last time?
Actually, I wasn't here, Nick. No, I mean, I wasn't here initially.
Right.
But when you came in and spoke, you said it wasn't fair to assess it based on your front footage.
Well, what I felt, Nick, what I thought was fair, I asked if there wasn't this cap, if there wasn't that state law that said the mill levy couldn't go higher, would you have just raised the mill levy? And the response kind of has been yes. So what I thought was fair was to use those same proportions, the same way you would have figured that, and use
Yeah,
those
and we looked at
aspects.
that, you asked us to do that. The way this is written, it's written as front footage. It doesn't give us a provision for value of home.
I don't know if you all had a chance to read the email I sent, but I did read through those state statutes, and there was it did not get into how you had to figure the rate.
The one thing I want to stress, John, is this isn't a valuation issue. This is a street issue. And it costs the same amount. If we're gonna do an overlay project, it's gonna cost $27,000 in front of in a block of homes that are 30,000 apiece. It's gonna cost $27,000 to do a block in a neighborhood with $100,000 houses. So it isn't based on the property valuations. It's based on, we need to repair these streets.
Okay, and then if you're gonna go along your chain of thought there, then it would be more fair to assess $1 per foot for everyone who owns large amounts of property.
And we had that before, and that wasn't what the audience wanted, so we came back with a cap.
Well, okay, then, now that you're coming back with this new way of looking at it, I mean, I don't know how the community and those people feel about it. I'm just sharing with you now.
Thank you.
I shared with you
Mhm.
before that.
Yes.
It actually seems more unfair, you know? Let's say you bought a flood lot from the city for $200 a few years ago. Now you're surprised you're gonna be paying $100 a year for something that may be assessed for $175.
Welcome to the world of timeshares.
See what I'm saying? It's like, that's why the two extremes here are that someone with a flood lot's gonna pay the same amount across Rellis who has 1,000, maybe 1,000 like that.
Unfortunately, really what the feedback we got, we didn't have a lot of feedback from the people who have a $200 evaluation lot, or somebody that's got a $400,000 evaluation lot. Most of the feedback we got was from the people in the middle. And really what we got back was, I have a corner lot, and how come I need to pay is more than the guy right beside me? We had a lot of that feedback. And do you want us to tell you this is perfect? Absolutely not. But the feedback we got, this is overwhelming. I mean, there were people, like the mayor said, that didn't want to do anything, and some that had different ideas, such as yourself, as far as evaluation, but overwhelming it was, it isn't fair just because I have 10 more feet that I pay more, I have 100 more feet I pay more. That was the message I got over and over. Surprisingly to me, as much as maybe some others, they said, don't back off on this, but cap it. We want you to do this, but cap it.
And I've had lots of that. But just a handful of people who just as soon not do anything.
Well, I can just correct one thing, Roy. That meeting we had, there was only 2 people here that wanted this set fee, $100. No one else on this committee, or no one else to the resolution.
But there are a lot more people in the
No,
city,
that meeting-
and that's what I was getting. That's why, people that would come up to me on the street or catch me at 4th of July celebrations, that's what they were saying. I'll be honest, I'll do whatever you want on this. It's your guys' streets, if you guys don't want it, but you, when I say you, I mean the people in the city, this is what they were telling me.
I know, just to point that out, Scott, it benefits the wealthiest people with huge properties, and the little guy is the one that end up really suffering. From my own point of view.
I'm not arguing your point. Your point is very valid. What I got back from the general public was, they're not so worried about Prostrello's. They're worried about the guy on the corner with the corner lot. That's what I heard. Nobody, I mean, I shouldn't say nobody. There were a few people. I've had a few people bring up the fact where bigger businesses aren't paying. But overwhelming again, it came back. We're okay with this. We just think it should be fair, and I shouldn't have to pay twice as much as my neighbor.
And then I had people saying, well, now, does it go all the way around? Do I have to pay down the alley too? I just want to know what it's going to cost me maximum. And once they knew where the maximum was,
Your change is gonna
that was
benefit
it.
me personally. However, I'm just still looking at the fairness issue, and it seems very, very odd.
And I think we can all point out, there are points, if you pick out areas of property owners, there are fairness or inequities in this. But with the front footage fee, there's limitations on what we can do. We really have to set the rules the same for everybody. So we can't just say, well, you're a business, so we're gonna charge you more, or you're excess of so many feet, so we're gonna charge you more, but everybody else is capped. I suppose we could, I mean, you can get crazy with it, but.
well,
we
you can
chose
get
that
real
as
crazy
simple-
with it and say, well, back, 10 years ago when I had teenagers driving, I had more cars on the road than most people, because I have 8 kids. And that I should have been paying more, so, like he says, I don't know where fairness ends. What I do know is, we have streets that need to be repaired, and the budget's not keeping up with it. and we have sewer lines and water lines and that we'd like to repair. The sewer department, sewer budget brings in some money that maybe we could use for replacing some lines. The water department brings in money in that maybe we can replace some of the water lines, but we don't have any income from the streets to help the budget replace the streets if we take them up to replace the bad lines. And that's the issue, okay? We've got 100-year-old water and sewer lines. It's not just the surface of the street. It's what's underneath it. And when it doesn't come into your basement, it's no big deal. But when it comes into your basement, it becomes a big
How
deal.
are we gonna pay for it long-term? I'm sure people are gonna be very concerned about that. When I read your new resolution, there's something, I don't know if you were gonna plan to go ahead to explain more of it later, but when you said that you're gonna charge a maximum $100 for contiguous lots, does that mean that if you own multiple lots in a row, then you'll only pay $100?
No, it's
for
however,
each
however it's registered at the courthouse as a parcel. Because we have some in that people have basically 2 lots with 1 house on it.
Uh-huh.
It's however it's registered at the
So you're
courthouse.
saying if you only get 1 tax card for those, I have one place that has 3 half lots, if you go look at your plat, and I only get 1 tax card. So I would pay.
I'm going to defer that
If
to
it's
David.
identified as one parcel of the Director of Equalization, which the Director of Equalization breaks it down by parcels. If it's one parcel, then the fee will be for that parcel only.
So I'm still not certain in this case if I end up paying $300 or if I could just get 1 tax card for that house that has, if you look at the map, you can kind of see that it was 3 half lots. I would think that's been parceled together.
I would
Do
think
you-
it's a parcel, John, but I don't know until I saw your parcel ID or your tax card. But it may very well be one parcel.
I see. Because you can understand why that's not funded in the long
I
run.
understand the question.
But otherwise, if someone owns a flood lot next to their house they bought, you're saying that's a separate lot, so they'll have to pay an additional $100 or,
Most likely they will,
I see.
yeah. Because
Unless
we-
they tried to
yeah, you
build
have
on it
understand-
and then-
You have to understand, we'd have to change all the courthouse records otherwise, because the way this is collected, and David can explain that to you, is we have, if you wanna see somebody that's really excited about this whole thing, is go talk to Bobby Yankee. I'm surprised she hasn't been in here with a hand grenade, but she's been a real trooper. David's gone over and worked with her and done some groundwork. But we're stuck with that because that's how the county puts it together. We don't have an assessor, the county does, and they identify the parcels.
I understand. I
So,
just didn't understand.
just a
You
couple
changed-
comments
You
on-
had changed your
yeah.
reading of the way that was, and I didn't know what that meant, but.
I'd like to
Trying to
make a
clarify.
couple comments to John. Number one is, and George, one of the people who was here last meeting, who's not here tonight, I visited with him at the laundromat. First thing he told me was, you do $100, I'll be hopping up and down. That was one guy. And I'm not gonna say who it was, but you know who it maybe was. But anyway, that was one guy that was here last time. And so, there's that. And then I got a call today from a business person that doesn't live in Madison, but has Main Street businesses, and used the same argument that you used to John about, I have 100 feet of property that I'm gonna get taxed on, I'm gonna pay $100, and without mentioning names, there are big commercial properties that have more than 100 feet, and it's not fair, and it's not fair. You know, and like Scott said, I can't, debate the point of what's fair and what's not. This is a start of a way for your city to collect some fees to work on the streets. It's not perfect.
No, it just seems that as the way they pass this law, when they call it a special assessment, it does seem as though they're saying that there should be a very identifiable sum of money, and when that is collected, it is terminated. And that's what I fear when I look at the way this is, it's just gonna be, we're just gonna keep collecting this money over and over, and it's permanent.
This
First of all,
resolution,
it's
your
not called a
commission-
Special assessment. It's not referred to as a special assessment. It's a separate standalone statute that refers to a fee. It's not a special assessment, and that might be why you're not seeing that in the reading. Secondly, it has to come back every single year by way of resolution, and each future commission will have to approve or disapprove proceeding with the project.
I understand that, but after it starts to be approved year after year, it just starts to become, this is almost a new way, if you wanna call it revenue, or if you want to eventually start to refer it as tax, it really just becomes. a
It's
new
money out of the
collection.
taxpayer's pocket to the city.
Yes, right.
I don't care what you call it, it's gonna be money coming to the city.
Right.
Yeah.
The best thing would be is if the gas prices came down under $1 and the price of blacktop came down under $1 and the budget stayed the same, we could get something done. but,
And I
but
don't
that's
know-
what hasn't
I
happened.
don't know what people will do here, and I don't know if this will go to resolution, but is it possible that any of these other suggestions about collecting a little bit more money from, with the gas tax, which maybe people would buy into, then, are any of
City
those
doesn't,
even
the city
possible?
doesn't have the
At
ability.
this point in
Gas taxes are the domain
time,
of the state, wheel taxes are the domain of the county. So those are great ideas,
Uh-huh.
but they're
Yeah.
not something that we have much to say about.
If you want to go to the legislature and talk about the gaslaine tax and get laughed out of the legislature, I'll go with you.
Well,
And there's a former commissioner back there that'll tell you the same thing.
Because of the opt-out thing, which I don't fully understand, so would you, if this thing gets voted down, would you ever consider doing the opt-out? Does that just allow you to raise the tax rate?
what we're trying to do in this situation is get more for the dollar. If we went to a bond issue, then we got all kinds of fees that go into that, and we've got other things, that the money collected from the taxpayer goes to something else, and it doesn't go directly into the street. By doing this, it's still coming from the same taxpayer, but we can add this to the budget that's there and get more bang for our buck cheaper. And we have limited things that we can do. And that's where we are.
I guess, John.
But I really thank you for coming.
One extra comment on that. It's interesting that you'd say that, the mill levy. If I'm a conservative taxpayer, I'd say, identify the fee so I know where the money's going. If I raise the mill levy, guess what? That's just gonna go into the general fund, and all of us are gonna be spending your money on our new jet airplane so we can go to Las Vegas or something. I don't think that's gonna happen, but you understand what I'm saying is that, yeah, it wouldn't have to be. I think we are all committed, at least in our discussions, that any of this money is gonna go exactly where we're talking about going, on the streets.
The law requires it.
Yeah. There goes our jet airplane right there. Jenks will let us buy it.
Again, thank you. Yes. And would you please identify for the audience at home?
Jan Piper.
Thank you.
I have a question. Now, this does not apply to homes that are on state highway that go through town, correct?
If it's
It
within the
does, it
city
does.
limits of Madison.
It's in the city limits, but it's a state, then it does not apply to them?
No, it does.
It does?
They
Oh, I
drive on
thought
the
it
other
did
streets, too.
not. Oh, okay,
No, they drive, if you're within the city limits of Madison.
okay. Because I was thinking if it was a state highway, then who repairs the street when you have to repair the sewer on that road? But
Mhm.
it's still the city
Mhm.
repairs that. That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I make one comment? Eve had made it a while back, and I want to comment on that. I understand the fairness issue about property owners, but it's a cost of doing business like a lot of things. If you have rental property, you're gonna just pass it on to the tenant, as I see it. I've kind of thought about some of those issues. It's cost of business. And for a residential person, it's not a cost of business, it's a cost of owning a home. And that's a decision everybody makes when they buy a house. If you rent, and your landlord gets a bill for his road fee, he's probably gonna pass that on in increased rent. So it's the way it is. So I don't know that there's any other way of doing it. Like the people that don't, ever drive a car, ride a bike, that's their choice, but they're still gonna pay the fee.
I'm Adam Klein, and first of all, I'd like to thank you for putting it to a referendum, let the people vote on it. I've talked to many people in the last few weeks, and we have a Monday afternoon coffee club, which I didn't make today because of this meeting, but half the guys are there, I'll pay it. I drive on the streets, I'll pay it, the city does a great job of everything else, I'll pay it. The other half are like, oh, they already waste a lot of money, and it's been a big discussion the last few weeks at our coffee club. And without saying which way I am one way or the other, I thank you for allowing it to go to a referendum. I hate this when government says, it's my way or the highway, if you don't like it, move out. So by having a referendum, you're allowing the people to speak.
If the people want to bring it to a referendum, then we will honor that.
And then the other thing that my question was is, I don't know if hardly anybody here, the gentleman that had 3 half lots in a row, I think his name was John.
Mhm.
Could he make that as one parcel so that he's only paying $100 instead of paying the $300 fee?
I think that that's an issue for the Director of Equalization, and what's allowable to be combined as parcels.
Okay.
Not sure I can answer that tonight.
And the last thing I wanted to bring up is I've been down to Sturtevant's in December, And government employees, county employees, city employees are buying these tools, these tools, these tools, these tools. And I've seen one guy at the county, I realize this is city, but he was a county worker. He bought 4 creepers. And they were joking, yeah, gotta spend it or lose it, you know, I won't get this back in the budget next year if I don't spend it. Is there a way to go back and say, hey, wait a minute, you guys in December, as your budgets are ending, geez, you bought a lot of tools that you didn't need, you know, earlier in the year, why did you need this in December? Why are you spending all this taxpayers' monies now? What do we have for accountability of what's getting, what we're bringing in versus what we're spending? I mean, I didn't say anything at Sturdivant's, to the people because it just wasn't a place to get into an argument. But it really kinda ticked me off when these people are buying 3 or 4 creepers to take back to the shop out of taxpayer dollars, otherwise they wouldn't have it back in their budget. What do we have for accountability of what people spend?
Well, I think one of the things is we don't base everything that we budget off the previous year's budget. I think part of the misconception there isn't that they were gonna lose it, is that if they didn't spend it, they weren't gonna get the same amount next year. I think that's the philosophy there. It's not that, well, I'm gonna lose this $500. It's if we don't spend it to the max level, it's automatically cut. That's one of the things we do is look at what's needed, not what was spent in the past. We try to. So that does somewhat alleviate that. There are other forms, and I'm not saying the county does. I have no idea how they deal with that issue. I know I've heard at the federal level, that's how they do it. They look, what'd you spend last year? If you're not spending it, you get a cut.
But I've seen city employees also going down making the joke, I gotta spend it because I won't get it back if I don't. What do we have for accountability?
Well, we have a management crew that monitors what's being spent.
Okay.
I think we need to be careful of what's the reality and what's the joke. I mean,
Well, yeah,
that's one
all I'm
thing.
asking is what do we have for accountability?
Well, the one thing I do know, and I can speak specifically about Fred, because for that particular department, I mean, the poor guy's literally bloody. I mean, we don't swing any fists, but he still walks out of here bloody for some reason when we do the budget. He completely grasps where the budget's gonna get cut, because it's a big part. I mean, you can't cut electrical costs. They are what they are. But you can cut back on a truck, and you can cut back on, and he knows exactly what that's like. So he grasps what every penny being spent, it has to be spent on the appropriate things, or by the end of the year, he's stuck. So we try to hire good people, and we hope you elect good commissioners to monitor those people. That's probably up for debate, and it will be at every election going forward. Those are the things that we have in place, is to put good management and hire good employees. And that's not being said that there hasn't been an employee take advantage. I mean, that happens everywhere. That it will happen in the future, and when they're caught, you have to deal with it. I think that's
I guess kind
that's
of
the
like
key.
with my job, I'm out on the road, you know, I spend more time behind a windshield than I do in a desk. But every month I gotta do an expense report, my boss has gotta look at it, go, yep, I approve it, and then it goes into the management. And there's they do a random audit on my expense account every year, and they come down and say, why did you buy this, 18-gallon tote at Menards for $5? Every once in a while, they'll just randomly pick something out. Did you really need this? And I'm held accountable for every dime I spend of the company's money. I mean, there's some months that I spend $10,000 just on hotel stays across the United States, traveling all over. Last month, my bill was $237. Bosses don't care what I spend each month, but I gotta be held responsible for every dime I spend.
Well, I mean, this is a good idea. I think it's a good time. I can almost hear Jen salivating over there, and a new idea of, this is the kind of stuff she loves. We've got somebody, with the finance.
You'll see on tonight's agenda here down the, under new business here, bills for approval. Every 2 weeks, we approve the bills.
Okay.
They're approved by the department heads. The commission has a chance to review them. In just a few minutes here, we're going to approve the bills.
And there's more than
Every 2
that.
weeks.
What is there, 2 or 3 person checklist on everything?
I mean, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my.
Well, Adam,
money, it's your money, it's
one of the
everybody's
things
money.
that I've learned, coming from a citizen to this position here, is how many committees we have of volunteers from the city. I've sat in on the electric department committee, and it's volunteers that are not paid, sitting around the table here, helping make the decisions on, what should be done, what shouldn't be done, and it's amazed me at how many people that are volunteers for all departments of the city. We have 65 employees, and I would venture that if I went back and pulled out the committee lists in there, I'll bet we've got at least that many people from the public that help the city make decisions and do it in a very responsible manner. I've been very impressed.
I guess that's all I'm asking for is, let's spend money wisely, responsibly, to make sure that, you know, no offense, Dick, but let's make sure Dick's not buying that airplane.
Yeah, right. And I joke about that stuff, but I can tell you, I wanted to answer your question specifically because I'm the electric commissioner. I do sit with Fred on the depreciation stuff for the water and sewer. But with Dennis Poppins, I specifically sit with Dennis, I don't know how many days we go through his list. And he has funded depreciation, he has all his capital assets on depreciation, he has their age, he knows how long they've been there, you know, they have 1978 trucks, and you name it. And we go through the list every year, and he has, and department heads will tell you, I've been on the hospital board, everybody has a wish list, you know, what do you want? You know, there's what you want, and there's reality, you know, there's the old Rolling Stones, you know. So there's reality. And Dennis and the people that we have are very pragmatic people. They understand that this is taxpayer money. They understand that we can only afford certain things, and they rotate. And I always tell them, okay, Dennis, you tell me when the rubber hits the road, what stays and what goes. And he tells me, and he says, we need this stuff, but I'm getting you thinking about it because in 5 years I'm going to tell you I really need it. And so. We get there, and I think there's a lot of accountability. I think Scott said that. All these guys sit with their different people and take them to task on the money.
I guess, like I said, I just wanna make sure there's
No,
responsibility.
No, but it's good. They're good questions to be
And
asked.
it's
and we
great, it's a
appreciate
great
that.
question, because I think, you know, and don't get me started on the federal government, but if there was any accountability on the federal government's level that we have at this level, we wouldn't be in the fix we're in right at our level, okay? So don't ever worry about your money here. Worry about your money that you put in April 15th and sent off to the Great White Father. Try to go get some accountability on that.
Difference is I can sit in front of you guys.
Exactly. There you go. There you go.
And thank you for coming. Okay, George? Yes, please.
You know, when I was going around this petition, I talked to a lot of people who own a lot of property in town, and you said, well, you could just pass that on.
Not everybody. I said
No,
some.
But you could pass that $8 or whatever it is on.
Not on, I didn't say that for residential people. I said for business owners and for people who are landlords that could pass a tenant. I said for residential owners, that's just a cost making a decision.
Yeah, but you can't pass a rental house in Madison, someday it hits its peak. It's only gonna be worth $300 or $400. You can't add any more to it. But it's just like you were just saying, the school board, city commission, county commission, and you picked up the Argus Leader the other day, the big headline was, Minnehaha County Commission, we have to raise taxes because all our departments come in over budget. So you're asking, when you come over budget, you're asking us to pick up the difference. You have to learn to tell those departments no.
Well, I think it's very important that you specify again, that was Minnehaha.
No, yeah, I'm just saying.
Okay,
yes.
but that's,
No, I'm
Well,
saying.
and you've been there, George, but what we do is, we do that budget process, but there's our governmental functions and our proprietary functions, they gotta balance.
But
And
we
so
need-
as your utility commissioner, I'm the guy that gets the good news to make the other department, that's the rate increase.
Okay, well, you said, it. When I was here, Jeff Heinemeyer would bring us all the money. This is every penny that's coming to the city of Madison. And then all our department heads brought in theirs. It fit into this.
And it still does.
And if it had to cut, you had to, no, because you're showing here a $280,000 deficit at the end of the year on your budget, on your 19 million that you're out.
I'd have to look at our carryover. I think our carryover is about the same, but we carried over every year I've been on the commission, I think we carried over the same balance, about 200.
Any overage, right.
Yeah, we carried over. But
Hi.
Wayne Grad again. Just a question. I have 4 parcels down there. One is about 50, one is about 75, so I understand that one. And one is a hole in the ground about 125 feet long, and the other one is probably 75 feet. So I'm gonna get hit the maximum, because everyone is taxed that way, an individual lot. And My taxes used to be $2,300 a year, now they're 27 with a new school and a new swimming pool and a few other things. So this is gonna add considerably. I just want you to know where the average person is coming from. And you can say a landlord can tack it on to the rent. I've got a brother who owns houses that he can't even get the rent from some people. And I wouldn't put up with it. But he loses his rear end on his investment. To say, well, he can tack that extra $75 or $50 or $100 maximum onto the rent that doesn't work. But the people, the average person has a lot to take care of. So I know the streets are bad, I understand your philosophy, your theory, or the way you wanna handle it, yes. A street in front of a lot takes just as much to fix it. Why are they resealing these streets? That's something why aren't they grinding them up? I mean, help me out here a little bit. And getting them, they're lumpy, they're high, you got curbs that you can slide into in the wintertime because they're so steep and so built up. I wonder why they can't just get that asphalt if it's, and grind it and reheat it and spit it back down. I mean, it's just a thought.
I think they would. I think that would definitely be something.
I've never seen it done here.
Well, it takes more than just that. I think they're trying to do the most with the least amount
I'm just
and
asking
chip sealing. No,
Because when in Green Bay, I was really amazed when I went back one summer from my vacation, quote unquote, and the streets were all relaid and it was just beautiful. I don't know what it costs. But
it's cost $27,000.
Sealed and there's lumps and holes and.
It costs $27,000 a block. That's exactly
to
what.
grind them up and
to do what they do in Green Bay.
So how about
overlay.
How about just an asphalt? Like
That's an asphalt overlay. That's what grinding up and redoing it is.
Either way, it costs $27,000.
Because the whole process, it costs to do.
You can't just grind up the asphalt and lay it back down. It's gotta go and be reheated and remixed.
And put more sealant in it, and so we would do that if we could.
I'm just curious, that was,
Yeah.
on budgets and stuff like that, load control, electricity, I'm on load control, I guess I get $6 and some credit if I have a hot water heater, which I'm not on that load control, I get a little extra here and whatever. If it is a good deal like they keep talking about in the paper, or in the newsletter that they send out, why don't they make everybody go on load control? I am schlepped down there on Arth Avenue, wondering why is it so hot at Fort Oak? I'm on load control, but nobody else is. I've never heard of. Nobody tells me they're there's a lot of people.
Any new construction, we do require it.
Okay.
We
why
do
don't
have
you require everybody.
Well, we're looking at that as we speak. We have a committee that's evaluating that process, and they will very shortly be coming back with recommendations on what should happen with that particular program.
I think another question here was the gentleman, I said something about giving money back or something. I don't know. In other words, if I didn't spend my money, I remember way back when I was in the police force here in town, if the chief didn't spend the money, he gave it back and he got less money the next year in his budget. Why does that have to be that way? Is that the way it works?
No, that's, I think I was very clear about.
You use it, you lose it.
I was very clear on that, that we don't look at exactly what they said last year. We look at what's needed for the coming year.
Hey, Scott, just so you know,
And so gas prices go up?
everybody can hear back.
Okay.
He was
Yeah,
out
here.
Okay, so that's one of the checks. You need many of them, it doesn't fix everything, but that's one of the things we look at. We look at what the future year holds, not what they spent the previous year. So, we adjust these many times, it's a calculated guess, to try to figure out what gas prices are going to be. I mean, they don't go out and use all their gas. I mean, sometimes we figure it high, we get lucky. Many times over the last few years, it's been low, it's getting a little stabler so we can get closer, but it hasn't been the case where we penalize somebody for what they haven't spent. And in most cases, what they don't spend, you go 2 line items down and there's something that happens there. There's always emergencies that come up. That's when we look at we evaluate the budget as a whole and say, instead of spending it in this line item, things didn't happen. We didn't need to spend it luckily. Maybe we didn't have as much snow. But we have an emergency over here that a water break or whatever it might be, a pump blow up that you just can't guess. Many times we look at that and we evaluate, is that money being spent? Could it be spent better over here to replace this pump rather than waiting till the next budget cycle to buy it? So there's many things we're looking at.
I guess trying to follow you here a little bit, but I guess the general thought on my part is that if we didn't use it, we lost it, and the next year, we didn't get as much, and your philosophy is not that.
What we look at is what we're gonna spend in the coming year.
What happens, Wayne, is that the supervisors will come in and sit where you're sitting and justify what they need. We look at their last year budget, they put their proposals out, and each one of them, Chad and Fred and Dennis, who's sitting back there, has to come in here. And it's not, I won't say it's adversarial, but it's investigative on our part. We're trying to represent you because we're elected by you to ask those people that are running the government questions about why they need the money. That's kind of how it works, okay?
I've
But,
done budgets
but,
for
right,
33
but
years.
you have to understand, it isn't like I just say, well, okay, Dennis, you can have whatever you want. He has to justify that, and that's what each department does. We go department by department. And I don't think anybody says because you spent this much last year, you didn't spend it all, we're not gonna give you that much. He might need more this year because he didn't spend as much. So it's a justification process.
Well, yeah, if
And
we-
I'd like to think we're looking after your money
If
and
we
not just.
needed more, we didn't get it, and if we, saved a little money, well, that money was sitting there, and you better spend it, or that you won't get it.
I understand that mentality has always been out there. I understand that. But that's not the way I look at it. I look at it them justifying what they ask for.
We've had many cases where, for some particular reason, that project or that thing didn't get done. The dry beds, we didn't spend the money to pick the sludge up in the dry beds. We didn't penalize them for that. We realized that money was saved last year, but it's a bill that's coming due, and that we need to pay it. So I think the commissioners that I've been on with do a good job of common sense, looking at what we have and realizing, sometimes things are gonna cost more, some things are gonna cost less. We don't need to blow every penny we got. We love to come on under budget. I think we got a group here that are somewhat squeaky, and we love to see that happen. But we also understand when a $10,000 pump blows unexpectedly at the water treatment plant, we have to deal with it. That's just like in our households, when our transmission breaks down, you don't have a transmission fund. A lot of people don't anyways. You just figure out how it's gonna get done, and that's what we do at that point. So, but I don't know I know what it's like in other places, but we don't cultivate that type of mentality to spend it or lose it. That's not what we pound into what the supervisors pound in. That's not our mentality. I don't know what else to say about that. We could sit and line people up for weeks to give examples of other places that do that. I have no doubt about that. I've seen it myself, but that's not what we cultivate here. That doesn't mean it never happens, but we sure try not to, cultivate that mentality.
Well, okay, I just, thinking about where you could cut in some of the budgets and some of the things that can happen in a person's life and that. The last thing someone has to school me on this one, I'm trying to figure out where the airport is doing me any good. Why are we in the airport business? Just help me out here a little bit. I know that a lot of that airport was built with federal funds. It didn't seem like it was a problem to extend the airport, the landing, lane or whatever. Is this a moneymaker for us?
It's not a direct moneymaker, but it's an economic booster for us. It does have an impact on the type of companies that locate here, the type of people that come in and utilize this area. We're a stop-off point for many, many people flying through, where they come in and use our facility. I can provide you with documentation of what an airport of this size relates to economic development in our community. We have documentation of that, so.
We haven't expanded in 30-some years, we're still 6,000 people. I already said we're 20 miles too far west and 27 too far north of the interstates for anybody to really care that we're here. And I don't know that we're a bedroom community, and we tend to drift off to other communities to work, whether it be Brookings or Sioux Falls. I mean, you gotta watch your time when you go someplace, because you're going to get into some pretty heavy traffic certain hours a day because everybody's going to work. And I know there are people that come into town to go to work at Gale. And that's one company that I would say would fly in here maybe and fly out. But I'm just trying to figure out the airport and where the economic.
Well, I'd be more than happy to sit down and get with the airport manager, explain that to you, but that's a long conversation. It's not a 3-minute.
Yeah, I know it is.
Yeah.
And,
But there's 4 businesses operating out of there now, and
yeah.
they do generate revenue.
I used to fly to Green Bay and back rarely, but when I did, I landed in Wisconsin central Wisconsin, and their airport wasn't half as nice as ours out here, and they had planes coming at least twice a day with passengers getting off and transferring that, so I'm just wondering, you know, it just seems to me like it's a hell of a waste of money, but maybe that's just me. Have a good day.
Again, thanks, Wayne, for coming,
You bet.
you know. And again, you know, I'd like to get back to, you know, the resolution 2013-23, establishing a special maintenance fee to repair the streets and that in Madison. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the issue? Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming out, because I know it's an effort on your part. So, with that, I will look to the council and see if there's any discussion on the council, or if there's a emotion one way or the other.
Well, I think that it's been pretty well discussed, but I will make a motion to approve resolution number 2013-23, establishing a special maintenance fee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Okay, next item on new business, transfer of service territory agreement, Sioux Valley Southwestern Electric to the city of Madison. And I've read through that agreement, and what it basically amounts to is the area that is proposed for the new hospital is not in the city of Madison's power jurisdiction. Correct me if I'm mistaking on how I'm saying this. But they are transferring that property to Madison. There is no cost involved, because currently on that property, there are no services provided. So that property then will be, I'm going to say the word, annexed into the Madison electrical jurisdiction under this agreement at no cost to the city of Madison.
No upfront cost for infrastructure.
Right. Yeah, because there isn't
There is a
anything
cost.
there to purchase. Okay? Is there anyone that can add to that? Did I misstate anything there, David, or?
This
We
has
do have
been
a big
approved
comment.
already by Sioux Valley, and David has reviewed, and okay.
And it complies with the state statutes that deal with the transfer of electric jurisdiction.
We've done this,
Right.
George is gone now, but I think he was on the commission when the industrial park went in and another, you know, when
There's
we,
several in the file.
yeah, put things in.
All right, if there is no further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve the agreement for the transfer of service territory and enter into the agreement with Sioux Valley Electric.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Number 3 on the, motion carries. Number 3 on the new business, bills for approval and bills for ratification. Any questions or there?
Make a motion to approve and ratify the bills.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. There is some attached personnel actions. Do we have a discussion or motion there?
I'll move to approve the personnel.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no other announcements or other business, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And again, I thank the audience for attending and wish you a good week.